In 1995, Disney made one of the most amazing films which truly captures the emotion found between a single father and his teenage son, and it blew audiences away. But then, it disappeared. A Goofy movie is probably one of the most underrated films to come out during the Disney Renaissance era, but it seems to have completely vanished from pop culture mentions aside from an occasional Powerline t-shirt. But why did this happen, and where did it go? Also in this video, we're going to discuss how Disney actually intended for this movie to feel nostalgic in the future when it was being made. In this video, we're going to talk about 4 things: emotion, the Disney formula, nostalgia, and disappearance. The first thing we need to discuss though is why a Goofy movie is such a great film. Emotion. The movie starts us off with our main character, Max Goof, in a pretty emotional nightmare. This scene depicts Max's main internal struggle throughout the film, that he's terrified about turning into his dad, Goofy. It's at this point in the movie where we realize that the fun-loving and always kind character Goofy is actually the movie's villain. If Max is our main character, even though he may make tons of mistakes along the way, then Goofy is the villain because he's the one person who hinders Max from achieving what he wants in the film, which is being cool and getting the girl. Max's interactions in the first few scenes with his friends and his love interest Roxanne perfectly encapsulate the awkwardness of high school and new relationships. Also, it's so much fun to see Carl from Jimmy Neutron and Pauly Shore from Encino Man join the cast of voice actors for the film as Max's high school friends, as well as the Princess Bride's Wallace Shawn as the school principal.
Inconceivable!
There are tons of scenes which are able to perfectly show the emotion between a loving and goofy father and an angsty teenage son. Goofy takes the stereotypical pun-making dad to the next level, pushing Max's embarrassment to the extreme by taking him on a cross-country fishing trip complete with a stop at a possum-themed amusement park. Honestly though, Goofy makes such a great single dad. It's simply a complete lack of communication that causes the rift between them, leading to what I'd call anti-chemistry. During the song On the Open Road, the two actually sing in canon, perfectly imitating each other's melodies, but just not at the same time. Although the two don't exactly see eye to eye, get it, they're still able to have great musical chemistry together. You can definitely tell that there just needs to be an adjustment in their communication style or some form of compromise for the two to exit the realm of anti-chemistry and enter the realm of true chemistry. At one point in the movie, after a huge fallout, the two have this interaction.
I've grown up! I've got my own life now! I know that! I just wanted to be part of it!
This devastating interaction resulted from a total betrayal of trust on Max's part. After being officially named the trip's navigator by his dad, Max changed the map directions and sent them towards Los Angeles rather than their fishing destination so he could see his favorite musician Powerline. Goofy, hoping he wouldn't do this, let Max keep his navigator status, which ultimately led to Max's betrayal. After this betrayal, there are no musical numbers for a good portion of the movie for an enhanced emotional effect, which brings us to the next item to discuss: the Disney formula. Disney movies tend to follow a pretty strict formula for success. They're almost always musicals or include musical numbers. They typically feature a more traditional family unit. They include what's called an I Want song as well as an intro song, and there's almost always a romantic story at the center of the plot. Basically, the formula is that a princess with a desire to do more finds a guy that fulfills her desire, along with plenty of musical numbers to fill in some time. This movie, however, diverts almost completely from this formula, taking its own unique one. While the film does include musical numbers throughout, it takes a different angle on how to fill out the plot. Instead of having an intro song such as Mulan's Honor to Us All, in addition to an I Want song such as Ariel's Part of Your World, Max sings After Today, which accomplishes the functions of both an intro song and an I Want song.
No more Maxie the geek, no more goof of the week like before.
It introduces Max as a high school reject, planning something big for the last day of school before summer begins, and it also shows his deepest desires, to finally be seen as cool and to talk to Roxanne. Another way the film detracts from the Disney formula is by giving us a less traditional family unit, a single father and son. It's really refreshing to see a less traditional family on screen when we're used to seeing the typical nuclear family in most releases. Showing how a single dad is able to reach his son on a deeper emotional level could actually be quite inspiring to people going through similar situations. Lastly, while there is a romantic story in the film between Max and Roxanne, it isn't the central focus. Instead, the focus is placed upon the relationship between Max and Goofy. So, rather than being a romantic love story like we see in most Disney movies, this film is a family love story. In fact, I'd argue that the song Nobody Else But You is one of the most touching love songs we got from the Disney Renaissance era.
Nobody else but you. We turned into a true blue duo.
The two most memorable songs from this movie are definitely Eye to Eye and Stand Out. Stand Out is the song that every kid wishes they had the guts to perform on the last day of school so they can finally be seen as cool and get the girl. So I think it's one of the most universally relatable songs from the entire movie. Eye to Eye, on the other hand, is the culmination of the plot, resolving the two main conflicts of the story. Max and Goofy finally lose their anti-chemistry by seeing eye to eye, and Max gets to perform on stage with Powerline to impress Roxanne. Rewatching this movie, you can just tell that there's something about these songs that pulls you back into the 1990s in a way none of the other Disney songs from this era can do. You can't help but start to feel sentimental when listening to these songs. But I actually think Disney intended to make us feel this way when they were making the movie. Which brings us to the next topic, nostalgia. Rewatching this movie, I couldn't help but think that the creators intended to make a nostalgia time bomb in a Goofy movie, specifically for millennials. The score for the film and the genres chosen for the musical numbers helped to set the tone of a 1990s high school movie, and there are tons of little things that point towards its nostalgic feel, like their phones or manual car windows. At the beginning of the movie, Max is seen as somewhat of a Marty McFly type, not really that cool but still talented and pretty likable. After his standout performance though, he basically turns into the super popular Ferris Bueller. He becomes the main topic of conversation in the school, and there's even a sequence where he runs in people's backyards and through a family's house, just the same as Ferris Bueller did at the end of his day off. Because of these inclusions and many more, you can tell that the creators of the film truly wanted kids to put themselves in Max's shoes, and upon rewatching the movie later in life, recognize how fondly they remember those times.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Ultimately though, because the movie was seemingly made to create a feeling of nostalgia, it fell out of popularity pretty quickly as trends changed, which leads us to our last topic, Disappearance. A Goofy movie seemed to slowly disappear from pop culture in the years following its release, and this is likely due to several factors. First of all, the film isn't technically considered to be a part of the Disney Renaissance because it was produced by Disney Movie Tunes and Walt Disney Television Animation rather than Walt Disney Animation Studios. You know, the studio that brought us The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Mulan, The Lion King, and tons more during this time. Disney Movie Tunes and Walt Disney Television Animation, on the other hand, weren't known for releasing films with such widespread appeal as a movie like The Lion King, so audiences had lower interest in seeing the film upon its release, as well as pretty low expectations. Those who did see it, however, seemed to like it a lot. It even sits with a 70% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is much better than most of the direct-to-VHS releases that Disney Movie Tunes was regularly releasing. Although it had a pretty underwhelming take at the box office, it soon became a movie staple of many American homes in the 1990s, as it was released on VHS. By the early 2000s, however, VHS players had gone almost extinct with the rise of DVDs. Because of this and its nostalgic intention, a Goofy movie slowly began to slip out of popularity. Aside from an occasional mention on social media or intermittent merchandise sales, this movie has somewhat vanished. And it's sad to see because a Goofy movie is truly one of Disney's best films from this era, and it teaches several great lessons. It'll be interesting to see if this happens with any of Disney's more recent releases, and whether a Goofy movie will ever find its way to a featured film slot on Disney+. Also, I forgot to mention how amazing that cheese on the pizza looked. I'd eat it for every meal of every day if I could.
I can't believe you, man.
Anyways, that's going to be all for today. If you liked what you saw, maybe check out the video on your screen for some different content. I make videos on basically anything that interests me in the world of entertainment. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe as it truly does help me out, and thanks for watching Rocket Riley.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.